Good.
Sam, hey, good to see you, bud.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so it's kind of fun to actually connect and talk face to face. I mean, we've been, I would say, social media friends for quite a while now.
Yeah, I know it's been such a crazy last few, I would even say like last 6, 8 months has been crazy for me. Um, so yeah, I'm glad to finally get back into things.
Yeah, so yeah, you've had a crazy 6+ months because you're from Toronto, you moved
Yes,
to the States, and now you're back in Toronto.
correct. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, okay. Basically, what happened was I was working with a company. I still am. But basically, we needed to build an office down in Boise, Idaho. And so I went down there during the summer, and we basically just built this office for
Mhm.
video production and stuff like this for one of our main clients. And after being there for a little while, I realized like I just really want to be back home because for me, like home is where my family is. It's where I get to play hockey. It's where I get to do all these cool, amazing things. And although I loved everything I was doing in Boise, Idaho, it just didn't feel like home. So that's now where I'm back.
Right, and let's not, glance over the fact that it was Boise, Idaho.
Yeah.
It's not like you were going to Chicago or Minneapolis or, 1, there was a lot more hockey to be played, or 2, there was a lot more to do.
Yeah.
Boise, I hear it's beautiful, I hear it's a great place to visit, but it takes a special person to move there and stay there.
Yeah, you're right. It 100% was beautiful. Don't get me wrong, there was like no traffic, which was nice. Like it was definitely a small town vibe, which is beautiful. But for me, especially when it comes to the hockey world, there literally is only two rinks, and one of them you have to be on like on the they're called the Steelheads. So I think they're a farm team for I forget which NHL team, but like so I'm
Yeah.
not on that team, and the other like the other arenas far away. It just is not conducive for hockey. That's for sure.
Yeah, in fact, one of the guys I just had on the podcast, Sustin Carlson, I believe he spent some time playing for the Steelheads.
Oh, no way. Cool.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, he was a fun one to have on because I coached him when he was a senior in high school.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
as I
That's
as I
awesome.
said on that episode, I got on the ice and saw he was pretty good. So I wasn't going to do much to mess with that.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, with all my guests, I like to talk about how you got into the sport. Now, I know because I've done the little write up on the blog and everything, but, how did you get started in the game of hockey?
Yeah, so I think I have to give credit where credit's due. I think it 100% came from my mom's love for the sport. So she grew up watching, the Blue Jays playing baseball and then playing the Leafs playing hockey. And so growing up, I just was always watching hockey with her. And then, especially in Toronto, when you grow up, whenever there's a pond that's frozen, the moment you are old enough to skate, you get your first pair of skates and you just go. So I think it was a natural progression for me to go from just skating for fun into playing hockey. But it's interesting when I became a goalie, it was within the second year that I was playing. The first year
Mhm.
is everybody's just a player, you're learning how to skate. And then from there, you join like house league where now like there's refs and there's actual teams. And everyone got the opportunity to be a goalie. So I was like, okay, cool. And I kept playing and they would keep asking who wants to be goalie. And I would always say, I do. I like it. I want to keep playing. And so I eventually just kept playing in net for whatever reason. I think I also have to give credit to like Dominic Hasek, Curtis Joseph, Patrick Waugh. Those they made it look like the coolest position in the sport. And so I think I just kept playing because I enjoyed it, wanted to mimic them. And then we went to the championship finals in my house league first season, and we played the undefeated Black team, who they were just the best. My best friend was on the team, who he would score all their goals, and he ended up showing me his move of what he would do on a breakaway. We go into shootout. We end up winning because I stopped him, who was their best player, and we won in a shootout. And I think that solidified me as a goaltender. Is like, okay, this is cool.
Yeah, it's always fun to play against friends too. I remember when I was
Yeah,
in grade school, there were only two of us from my grade school that played hockey, and we played for different associations. And there
yeah,
was that one game where it's like, wait a minute, we're playing each other. Um, and we were buddies,
yeah,
we got along great, but it was like, okay, we don't like each other today. Like even it was a school day and we're like not looking at each other. Our friends like, what's wrong? They're like, I don't like him today. They're like, why not? It's like, because I'm playing him. It
Yeah.
was just kind of one of those things. And it our playing each other didn't affect the outcome like your game, but
Yeah.
it's just kind of fun sometimes when you play your buddies and that rivalry comes out amongst you, where it's like
Oh
you
yeah.
gotta be the victor for sure.
Yeah, I
Um,
think he regrets. We literally like the weekend before, the couple days before, we were playing on his driveway, and he's like, "Oh, let me show you the move," and it's glove side. I'm like, "Okay," and then literally exact same move goes glove side. I stopped it, and at the time, so I was just borrowing equipment from the league, right? When you're that small, the glove didn't even close. I have the VHS of it, you just see my hand stop it, and the puck just fall right down. But either way, it was a glove. It was a glove save in my mind.
yeah. Hey, you stopped it. That's all that matters.
Yeah,
And I love that it was your mom that got you into the game. And
yeah,
it was really awesome to see your Instagram reel the other night and that, you're back home and you two got to go to a Leafs game together. And that was just
yes,
awesome.
yeah.
I don't know who had the bigger smile on their face, you or your mom, though. It,
I think she probably did. Yeah, she's missed me.
yeah. And as I sent you the message, it was, it really warmed my heart to see that because it was on the 6-month anniversary that my mom passed away. And it was just, I could see, you guys were excited because you were at the Leafs game, but I could see in the faces that the excitement was because you were together at the Leafs game,
Yes.
not because it was, so it was really, it made me smile that day. So that was fun.
And
Um,
I'm sorry, and my condolences for your loss, because yeah, my mom and I have a really tight connection, especially around the sport, and my whole life, like she was the one taking me to the game. She took me
yep.
like when I played AAA, like it was her and I in a car for an hour, 2 hours, and we just talked. Like we actually built a great relationship with me and my mom because we got so much time together. So yeah.
And I think it was Jeff Daniels just had a video that kind of went somewhat viral where he was talking about sports are important because of that parent time together of
Yes.
going to the games if your kids playing travel, spending time in the hotels.
Yeah.
My son's a baseball player and taking him to practice, I mean there's those stupid little things that happen in the car that make you laugh, and like he'll
Yeah.
bring them up to my wife and she's like, what, you guys are morons. It's like, yeah, but we're having fun. And and then there's been the few times we've had to go out of town and just those overnight tournaments. It's fun bonding time. And I think back to my youth, with my parents and what it was like. And it's just, yeah, those
Yeah.
are great memories that you're not going to make any other way.
No, there's no substitution for it. And like I know it's difficult because some kids just don't want to play sports, but like I truly believe you got to do something where you are
Mhm.
involved with your parents, especially at a young age, because like I don't have any kids yet, but when I do, like I want to have the ability to like create these memories, but also instill some of the ideas that I have that I think, that can help them develop as an individual. And if
Yep.
you're always just like, here's an iPad or go play your video games or like whatever, you can never get that time back. And that's
Right.
what I've learned. And I'm like, I'm so grateful for getting into sports. And because my mom was into sports like that, mostly it's usually the dads actually, but my dad worked a lot and I thank him for it because it allowed me
Mhm.
to do those things. But, yeah, I'm truly grateful for the sport and just sports in general, really.
Yeah, my mom was the one that took me a lot too because my dad was a fireman. So every third day he was at the firehouse for 24
Yeah.
hours. So she was driving me around. I still remember one time, I think we were coming back from a practice and we were in a suburb by the name of Alsip on 111th Street. She looked at, and we had a minivan, uh, Chevy Astro. I think it was, I don't know, but it was a minivan. Looks at the
Yeah.
car next to us and it's my buddy and his mom. And they're in a minivan. So we're at this red light and they both just start like revving the gas. Like, all right. And the light turns green and both moms just like floor it, drag racing their minivans down the street. And then my mom
Oh.
sees this cop in a parking lot. So she just like slams on the brakes, and my teammate, his mom kind of figured out what was up too. So she slams too. It was just so funny that like our moms are racing their minivans down the street
Oh
after
my
practice.
gosh.
I mean, those are the memories you don't get any other way, though.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, the minivan, we had one too. I think it was like you needed your hockey equipment and a minivan. That's the only way because the carpooling and stuff. Yeah, like
Yeah,
I loved it.
I had one teammate. I think he was one of like 7 kids, but his brother also played hockey and he was a goalie. So his parents had the conversion van and
Okay.
they would typically give rides to a couple of us to games when needed. But it was funny
Yeah.
because, as a kid in the 90s, at least in Chicago, there was this thing where like there were these thin strips of stickers of what high school you went to, and you'd put them in your back
Okay.
window. Well, each of their kids went to a different school. So, except for the 2 boys went to the same school. So, like, they just had all of these, stickers lined up on their windows. Like, are you advertising for the entire Catholic League? What's going on?
That's cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's hilarious. Oh,
Um,
man.
so you get started playing the game for obvious reasons. You were born in Toronto. You didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
And then because they make you try the position at the young level, you're like, yep, this is for me.
Mhm.
Um, how was that progression? Obviously in Toronto, the opportunity to get coaching, goalie specific coaching
Yeah.
at our age was a lot more prevalent, even for me in Chicago. How was it kind of coming up, learning the position? Like you said, we had those great 90s era goalies to
Yeah.
emulate. Um, what was the coaching like for you at that time?
Yeah, so I actually really didn't have too much coaching. Like I usually played like select house league, and then when I finally moved my way up to, double A, that's when they finally introduced like, "Oh, we're going to have a goalie coach for you." But again, like I didn't go outside of the team that I was playing on, and looking back, I just was oblivious to how much you can put into it to get to
Mhm.
the next level. Like I just thought you show up to your games, a scout's going to be there, and then you'll get scouted one day. And that's just not how it worked for me with the coaching. Yeah, like eventually once I made it to AAA, they finally sent me to a designated goalie coach outside of the team. And that was going working with them for like weeks on end and then going and actually implementing what I've learned with them in practice and then in game. So I only actually ever had one true goalie coach up until I played AAA, and then the second goalie coach was Nick DeHaan, who's been helping me as a men's league goalie. So I've mostly self-taught, to be honest.
Well, and I think when we look at, the era we came up in,
Yeah.
we didn't have YouTube. The
Oh,
internet was in its infancy. I mean, it took 5 minutes for a web page to load. So, like, to your point, not knowing that we need to put ourselves out there more or
yeah.
train more and do stuff on our own, we didn't know because we didn't have that knowledge. We didn't have friends that were doing it.
Hmm.
So it was just kind of, and even for you in Toronto, I imagine it being the same thing. I mean, the good kids just they're good and they get noticed. But
Yeah.
other than that, it's like we didn't have a fraction of the knowledge kids today have. And I've often wondered that, and I've talked to my dad about it, going, man, if I were a kid now playing, how much different would it be?
Yeah.
Spend the same amount of money in that, I went to the one goalie camp in the summertime, which was local. Just do that, but all of the different resources like YouTube, in goal, um, Sense Arena, all of these other things. How
Yeah.
would that make me a better goalie? Because even as a Blackhawks fan, we couldn't even watch home Blackhawk games, so that was even less hockey for me to watch.
Yeah. That's
Dollar
great.
Bill
Yeah.
Wirtz, as he was known, he had this weird thought that if they put the games on TV, fewer people would buy tickets. So and it was like, no, we would buy tickets because we would see the product. So you could only see the road games,
Yeah.
and portion of those games are on the West Coast, and they're starting after I go to bed.
Yep.
Thank God the Hawks had for many, many years an amazing announcer, Pat Foley, and he did the radio and TV back in those days. So, I would fall asleep listening to Pat Foley call Blackhawk games.
Yeah.
But yeah, I often wonder how much of a better beer league goalie would I be today? Not how much further would I have gone, but how
Yeah.
much better of a beer league goalie would I be today if I.
Oh yeah, I can't even like. It's one of those situations where like we can always look back and wish and hope, but ultimately, I think I'm almost grateful. Don't get me wrong. If I made it to the NHL, that would be an amazing dream and accomplishment. But
Mhm.
like, I look back, and if it was any other way, it would have. I think I would have not as enjoyed it because it would have felt like work and not fun. And I think like obviously yes, nowadays the resources are helpful because you
Yeah.
can go. But I know once I finally have kids, and if they are interested in hockey or any sport, like I think I got to remember it's supposed to be a game first. But if they show interest in wanting to learn more, doing it virtually with a VR headset or going and getting training, like I want them to be the ones to push it. Like, to be honest, if I look at myself, when I was younger, not once did I ever ask my parents, "Hey, can I go try out for a AAA team?"
Yeah.
With the single A and double A, that's local, but AAA, now you have to go out of your city. And so I was in Bolton, which is north of Toronto, and the closest team was in Richmond Hill, which is about a 45-minute drive. So for our
Mhm.
home games being an hour away, that already was, a lot to ask. And so I I didn't even have that idea of like, oh, I need to go try out for these other teams. But yeah, it's interesting. I think if I knew that was a possibility, I probably would have maybe been more inclined to do so. But yeah, it's tough because obviously more resources are great, but also I want it to remain fun. So
Yeah. No, that's a great point, because I think of my youth hockey, and because dad was fireman, and getting to games would be an issue. I never asked to play travel hockey. If I asked to, they probably would have done what they could had to make it happen. But it was like house league was fine
yeah,
because I loved the game. I was still playing year round. I was the one asking to play summer hockey, and they're like, "Sure, you don't want to play baseball?" Positive, I want to play hockey. Okay, but they gave me the choice and made
yeah,
sure it was mine. Um, and I know I probably could have made the travel team. I actually played a few games for them when a goalie was hurt or on
yeah,
vacation. I was the first one they called all the time. So it wasn't until I got to high school hockey where I was essentially playing travel hockey, because I was playing on the high school team.
yeah,
But and then I wound up going on to play college. So it's like, but I had that drive. I had that want. And I
yeah,
look at my son, who's a baseball player, and sometimes I get frustrated. I'm like, do you want to do these things? Like, you can't just show up to tryouts and think you're ready to go. You got to get ready. And it's like, but I don't want to push him too much, to your point, because I want him to love the game. I don't want him to
yeah,
feel like he's being pushed or it's a chore. And when I was coaching high school hockey, we had some kids that were really talented, but
mhm,
hockey was just a thing for them. They didn't love it the way we did. And
yeah,
one of the other coaches, he wound up playing Division 1 hockey and minor league hockey and everything. And we were getting ready to play White Bear Lake, our big rivalry game, and we had to go into the locker room and get these kids pumped up. And we're like, "What is wrong?
yeah,
Like, we shouldn't have to talk to them. We should just have to knock on the door and say, 'Fellas, it's time for warm-ups.'" But no, we got to go in there and we got to get them warmed up. What is going on here? It was just this different appetite for the game.
yeah. I totally could see that because it's true. There are some natural born athletes out there, and I mean, good for
Yep.
them to have that talent. But if they don't have the passion, like I think hard work because of the passion, the hard work will always beat talent, no matter
Mhm.
what, because you got to put in that work. And yeah, I think growing up, I think this is the key that I'm realizing for when I finally have kids is like just communicate and ask, like, hey, do you want to just have fun? Do you want to just do this just whenever on the
Yep.
weekends? Or do you actually want to maybe potentially get to the NHL or anything like that? If that's what you want to do, like I can help you. I can get the resources that you need to help get you to the best possible position that you could be in. There's no guarantees, obviously. There's only so many goalies in the league, but like if you really want to do it, you got to understand it's going to shift from only pleasure to this is going to become somewhat of a job, but let them make that decision as long as they
Yeah.
understand that's what it's going to become.
Yeah, and that's actually why my son didn't play hockey, because we don't have house league hockey in Minnesota.
Gotcha. Okay.
And he's like, "That's really how I want to play the game. I don't want to play travel hockey." It's just
Yeah,
because up here, travel hockey is 6 to 8 times a week you're on the ice. He's like, "That's too much for me." I'm like,
that's a
"All right,
lot.
cool." So, he'll play on the pond. We had the backyard rink during COVID, and he loved that. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, do that, still have a love for the game and not get burnt out, because seen some of his buddies do that. In fact, that was Boy Scouts for him.
Yeah,
It was, we're going to do it. And when you think you're done with it, okay, we can have that conversation. But I don't want you to just be like, "I'm done because I don't want to go this week." You have to. So when he
yes,
was like, I'm done with it. And it was a bummer, because he really liked Boy Scouts, but COVID really killed the Boy Scout experience when you couldn't go
I bet.
camping. And then when you could, you had to wear a mask at all times, even if you were in your tent by yourself. Is like, He's like, it's
That's right.
just not
Yeah.
fun anymore, Dad. And it's like, I get it. So that was when it died for him, but which is a bummer because they always had the best Christmas trees, and now I don't get them anymore. um,
Yeah.
but it,
Yeah.
you
That's
know,
yeah.
to your point too, is at some point, at some level, it does become more of a job. And I remember high school kind of started getting that way because it was the
Yeah.
90s. So we weren't as into it in high school as kids are today. But it wasn't until I got to college where it's like that first week on campus, although tryouts didn't start till October 1st, captain's
Mhm.
practice started the first week of school. And every single day, Monday, actually it was 7 days a week we were going, and it was running the bluffs, off ice, on ice. We were on ice for 2 to 3 hours a day, but it
Yeah.
was all self-motivated.
Yeah.
Um, we wanted to be there. And then when the season started with the coaches, it was a little, we were still very, very structured for our captain's practices, but with the coaches, it was a little more structured. Now we're
Mhm.
working on our systems. So we're working on our um, playbooks and everything. But to me, I thought that was fun. I couldn't
Yeah.
get enough time at the ice rink. It was like, if I wasn't in class, I was at the rink. I was sitting in the coach's room talking to him. I was, to
Yeah.
me, it wasn't the work that, maybe some of my teammates saw it was.
I think, and that's the thing. Like either way, it's going to be work. It's just whether or not you enjoy the work. Like
Mhm.
everything in life, everything in life is work, but
Mhm.
it's whether or
Yeah.
not you actually enjoy it, and that's the difference, and that's what will motivate you to keep going. And like I'll know, like I know, for example, when I played soccer, I hated every minute of it. Where I was throwing my shoes, my mom was trying to help me when I was young. I was kicking them off. I was like, "Mom, I don't want to run in the sun. That does not sound like fun. Like, no, thank you." And I did it for a season. That was the end of it. And that's how, yeah, that's how I'll know with my kids, for example, if they're kicking their shoes off, this is not okay. They're not, this isn't something they're enjoying. I mean, you've made a commitment, finish the season, but if you're not enjoying it, we'll stop after the season. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned the commitment part because my daughter came to me last year and she goes, Dad, I want to join the fishing club at school. And it's like,
Okay.
okay, cool. And so she goes, what do I do? I said, well, you go to school tomorrow and you ask your activities director who you talk to. So she got the contact info, joined the team. Well, it was actually the varsity fishing team because there were apparently high school fishing is a thing. Never knew about
Okay.
it.
Nope.
And so she joined the team, and because she really enjoys fishing at the cabin with my father-in-law and going out and having fun. Well, then she learned what competitive fishing is. And
Mm,
she's after the first and now mind you, there were only 3 tournaments all season. After the first one, she's like, I don't like it. I want to be done. It's like, you can be done at the end of the season. She's like, but
yeah.
I didn't like it, Dad. I said, but you made a commitment.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna let you not join again. But you made a commitment and you got to fulfill your commitment. You can't just quit. And she
Yeah.
didn't like that answer. But she did finish out the season, still managed to have a little bit of fun throughout the
Yeah.
way. And it was funny because my son wasn't doing anything because not being in scouts. They're like, well, you're going to join too. And so they wound up being in the same boat together. And they
Okay.
finished in the top half of the conference. For you had these kids that, like us with
Yeah.
hockey. I mean, they were eat, sleep, drink, fishing.
Yeah.
And these two were finishing ahead of them at the tournaments. In fact, our neighbor
Wow.
who fishes for a different school um, finished, I think, third in the conference. But the neighbor was more excited about these two and the way they were doing. She's like, they're, they're not into it like the other kids, but they're still killing it. It's like, I know, I don't
Yeah.
know why but they weren't loving it. And they're like, we're done. It's like, okay, fulfill your commitment and then you can be done.
Yeah, and I think like that's the best part about even if you find something you don't enjoy, like that's a skill set that you've just now gained if you can stay with it and be like, okay, even though I don't like it for the moment, I'll get through it,
Yep.
and then you leave the other end with that ability of okay, I can get through something that's painful. But also too, like so many people quit before they actually give it a chance, and that's the thing too about being
Yeah.
committed is like if she didn't like the first one, maybe it was actually something that wasn't even about what she was doing. And then the next one, she's like, actually, this is fun. Some people quit because they're not good, but nobody starts off great. Like you got to put in the reps.
Right.
But once you've given it a full shot, you can make that decision like, okay, yeah, it's actually not for me, even if
Yeah.
you're good at it.
Once you've given it the old college try. And it was funny because after that first tournament, like They hadn't even gotten home yet, and the neighbor gets home, and he's like, "They did so awesome. They finished in 4th place." I was like, "Wow, that's awesome for their first tournament."
Yeah.
Didn't even tell us that his kid took 1st place in the tournament. Um, but they got home, and my daughter just killed it. I mean, she carried the boat that day. Um, and so I thought she would come home all excited, and I was like, "Did you have fun?" She's like, "Eh." It was like, "Okay, this is how it's gonna go."
Yeah.
But I listened to them. Their feedback was, "You're on the water for 8 hours on
Yeah, it's a long day.
competition day," and then during every week between competition, they were on the water for. I keep wanting to say ice. They were on the water for 3 hours, and she's like, "I just like to go out leisurely with Papa. We might be on the water for 20 minutes, we might be on the water for 2 hours, but it's like,"
Yeah.
and with competitive fishing, it was you're only catching bass. She's like, "I like catching the other fish,"
Gotcha.
and so
Yeah.
it was like I get where she was coming from. It's not that she didn't like fishing; she didn't like the competition side of it, and it's like, okay,
Gotcha.
that's fair.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's totally relatable for many things in my life too. Like I just, I enjoy the idea of it, but if I had to do this as a competition, like no, I just enjoy it. Like if I had to, I like making videos, right? That's what I do.
yep,
And like, but if I had to do it where you have to turn around a video every single day, like that's where I'd pull my hair out and be like, no, thank you.
yeah.
But if I have my time and I can take my time and be a little bit more creative with it, like yeah, 100%, I'll enjoy that. So I think that's how most people are, to be
Yep.
honest.
Yeah. So you mentioned the videos. Let's go
Yeah.
there because you like to take video of your games, and those were some of the first game videos of beer leaguers that I noticed.
Okay.
What got you into setting the GoPro up? Not only behind your camera, but the other goalies, and because you guys in Toronto do switch ends between periods.
Yeah.
What got you to start filming your games?
Yeah, so I think I have to give credit to Travis Ridgen and Trav Oilers, obviously, and KVG. I saw what they were doing,
Mhm.
and because I have a skill set in filmmaking and editing and stuff, I was like, I could probably do something. Now, I looked at what they were doing, and I'm like, okay, you got KVG who's making jokes about everything. He's the best in the world.
Yeah.
He's having fun. He's pure entertainment. Then you got Trav, who's like actually trying to make it to the league, and this is his journey. And
Mhm.
I'm like, that's really cool. And I'm like, if I were to do it, I need to do it differently. And I'm only playing men's league, so I'm like, what can I do? And I had this realization that for YouTube, anybody that goes on YouTube, they're either looking for education or entertainment, but ideally both. And so I was like, how can I make beer league games entertaining, but also educational? And that's when I realized I'm like, well, if I throw up some GoPros, I can actually do a voiceover and review what I did right, what I did wrong. So now you get to watch a beer league game, but only the highlights and the goals or whatever. And then you get
Yep.
to actually learn something from my mistakes. Because at the end of the day, regardless if you're the best in the world or you're not, you could still learn something from somebody else. And
Right.
so that's why I started with the one GoPro behind me and I did a voiceover for my first video. But then I realized that this is going to take forever because I was rewriting and re-recording my voiceover, and I was subconscious about it. I didn't think people were going to like it. The typical, nobody's going to like this. Why am I doing it? Why am I spending so much time? Right. But
Yeah.
then I realized I'm like, okay, let me just put it out there. And I think the natural progression was I started putting it out there. And when I got my first 10 subscribers, like, oh, this is cool. And then I got 50. And I remember running upstairs to Jacqueline, my wife, and I was like, I got 50 subscribers. This is the best thing in the world. Like, holy crap. And then from there, I was just like, how can I make this better? What can I do to improve? And because I had such a busy schedule, I was like, I can't really do too much outside of the game that I'm already playing. So then it hit me. I'm like, well, why don't I put a GoPro on my helmet and then just do the voiceover while I'm actually playing? And then it naturally happened where I was like, every time after every period, I felt like I didn't have enough time to go behind my net, take the camera off, go to the other net, put it back on before they drop the puck. So I was like, I just need to have two cameras. I'll put it at both ends and I don't have to worry about that anymore because I just want to focus on the game. And then
Yep.
from there, I was just like, oh, this is cool because now I get to see my team's goals. And then that's where the scoreboard came into it. And then I was just like, okay, cool. I figured out what I can do that's different than what everyone else is doing at this time.
Yeah, and you mentioned Kane, and he's awesome. I had the pleasure of meeting him over New Year's when he was in town for the Winter Classic, and we did a shootout together on one of the
Yeah.
indoor rinks. It was fun. I saw him when we were going to go. He's like, all right, I'll get an Uber there. It's like, why don't I just pick you up? I've got an SUV. He's
Yeah.
like, but I'm going to have like all my stuff because we're going to be going to the airport. It's like, we'll make it fit. And I mean, he's in the front seat. He's got a backpack on top of his poor wife was in the back, just like crunching. But we did it. And then I dropped him off at the airport. He's like, man, you just saved me probably $100 in Uber fees right now.
Yeah.
It's like, don't worry. I was like, I had to come out to the rink too. So why not go a little bit out of my way to pick you up? But
might as well.
He's like you said, he's got that dry sense of humor, funny about it. And then Trav, I really liked Trav when he started because it was, I think when he started, it was an honest, like, this is my journey. It was a different feel. And then as he kind of, when he went over to Sweden around that time, it changed a little bit. And I don't want to say he got a little cocky and got a little bit of an attitude, but that's really what happened. And his stuff's taken a different turn that I think has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But, to your point, when he first started, it was really good stuff. And it was honest and I think raw. And, those two, as you said, inspired you. And I think they did me a little bit, but really it was seeing your beer league stuff. And, you put a little bit of, effort into it. And then when my son when he was a Cub Scout, had a advancement task where they had to make a short video. So he's like, let's put the GoPro up at your game. I was like, okay. So we did it for one game and he did his thing. It's like, well, this is kind of cool and useful. Because I went back and I watched it and I saw, what was I doing wrong? Or what was I doing good? And so it's like, I'm not going to lie. I do watch the video to see how I can get better. And, if my teammates pick on me from time to time, but I'm like, wouldn't you want me to try and get better? Because we're not a very good team to begin with. So we need all the help we can get. But I don't know. It's just kind of fun. And it's not like I have a ton of subscribers, but other people seem to find it useful. But I don't know. I think it's just kind of fun. And, you look at it from the side of being a parent. And I think it's one of those things, down the road, you leave it for your kids. And maybe when the grandkids are around, I can be like, look, I used to be good, somewhat good. I used to be able to do things. There's a little bit of that kind of goes into it for me, at least this year. I've been very retrospective, thinking of things with how my life has changed. It's like there's a little bit of that too, but it was really your videos where you had the scoreboard, you had the flat, that little animation for highlights and stuff. It's like, I need to up my game and not just I mean, I'm still using Apple Movie, but I have some Adobe elements in there too, and it's like it just makes it look a little bit better. So it definitely got me to record my games.
Well, I'm happy to hear, because like it's so strange how it transitioned from, I'm doing this, like I legit was like you watching my games to see what can I do to get better, but then I was just vocalizing it and sharing it with others, because in my first video I'm pretty sure I said something like, if I know I can learn something for myself, then you probably can too. And then I think it just progressed, and I'm just like, this is actually helping people. And as I continue to grow it, like the Puck Stops here became something bigger than I even imagined, because like I have a decent amount of subscribers, but it's not even about that. It's like people legitimately wanted to buy this hoodie, wanted to support, wanted to represent what the Puck Stops here's meant. And I was just like, this is really cool. And it transitioned from like, okay, not only am I helping them, but like I'm actually building somewhat of a community here of goalies who are beer leaguers, who, at the end of the day, it's for fun. We do still want to get better. It's not like it's going to make that much of a difference in our day to day, but we're not getting paid for this. But if I can play a little bit better, stop one more puck, it's a confidence booster. And I think that's what people enjoy in these videos. And like, that's why I'm excited to get back to posting. Like I'm literally today editing my return video. Like it's where I explain where I was, what I was doing, why I'm back and stuff like that. And so I played my first official game since being back last week. So It's going to be, I'm going to have a video that explains everything, and then I'm going to be back to posting as per I used to, which I'm really excited about because I've missed it. People always commenting, when are you back? What's going on? Are you okay? And I'm just like, in my mind, I am okay. It's just right now I have to focus on doing what I made a commitment to going to the States to build an office, to build a team. And for me, I didn't feel okay leaving until I knew that was set up. Once I felt confident in like the team that we built there, I was like, okay, I can finally go back and do and pursue what it is that I want to do. And yeah, like it's so crazy because I'm not even like, I literally not quit. I guess I kind of did. I went from full-time working with them to now like more of a consultant role because I want to focus on a few things, including my YouTube channel for the Puck Stops Here. But there's a few things that I'm going to be doing in the next couple months that I'm really excited about that has nothing to do with anything that I've been doing. And I'm just like, I finally feel like I have the freedom to do it. And part of that is the YouTube channel too.
That's awesome. You know, it's kind of fun as you get older and you start to get that flexibility. You do the things you want and not the things you need to do. It is kind of fun. And I was thinking about what you were saying and, you know, the fact that people want to watch your stuff. And, you know, you do a really good job of talking about the technical side of your game and, you know, what you did wrong here and what you did wrong there. And I thought about it, it's like my style is so old that it doesn't you know, if I get kids watching, that's not going to help them any. In fact, if they watch, they're like, why aren't you doing, you know, butterfly slides across? And it's like, well, because I just got new pads and now I can, you know, up until this time last year, I couldn't in my old stuff. You know, so I think the audience that has really gravitated towards my stuff is, you know, people our age and older who, you know, that they like that 90s era goaltending. So that's kind of what I've gravitated towards. And it's funny once you find that audience, no matter how small like mine is, or you know, growing like yours is, it's funny when you don't put anything out for a little bit of time and people are like, well, you know, they're kind of like that Dave Chappelle meme, like, you got any more content?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I almost feel not obligated in a negative way, but like I feel like, you know, I helped, like I've been helping so many goalies, and like I feel like I want to continue doing that. Like that was something that actually drove me to keep going. And, you know, because with YouTube, obviously there's ups and downs with it. Like at some points it feels like, oh, this is, you know, feeling like a job, and I didn't want it to feel like a job. I need to take a break. And there were times like that for me where I was like, you know what, I'm just going to take a break for a little bit of time. But ultimately, when I took a really long break, it's been 8 months now, or no, the last post I did was December, like literally last Christmas. I was like, here's a gift for everybody, not knowing it would be the last post for a while. And then literally I haven't made anything, but I do have some content that outside of the one video that I'm working on right now and the game that I played, back when I was consistently uploading, I created like a membership site where anybody who bought a hoodie got access to it. And I actually created these really in-depth video reviews of goals. And like, so in my normal videos, it was maybe a 15 to 30 second minute tops overview of why the puck went in. These are like 3, 4, 5 minute long videos, really going into depth onto like the 3 major or the 4 major things I could have did differently. And so I have this idea right now where to get people like to kind of start posting again, I'm going to post my return video and then post those, because I do believe those truly will help a lot of people. And then I'll interweave my normal content that everyone's kind of used to there. Yeah.
Well, that's like in goal. Part of their membership is the pro reads where they do just that. And I think back to my last game, and I wouldn't have to do an in-depth 3-minute video on why the first goal went in and what could I have done differently. What I could have done differently is told my defenseman not to touch the puck because it was coming. I'm watching my glove, and he's, you know, maybe 2 feet in front of me, and he just takes his stick, goes like that, and puts it right over my glove. And he turns around, he goes, I should have let it go. I was like, yes. And I looked at him, he said, when there's nobody between you and me, don't touch the puck. And he's like, I'll see what I can do, but, you know, natural instinct.
It's such an instinct. Yeah. Some players, there's this one player that comes to mind the moment you said that, where every single time he tries to stop the puck, and in my mind, I'm like, your twig is like this big. I'm so much bigger. Like, just let it hit me. I mean, it's part of the fun of the game too, because like I think the number one reason why I love being a goalie is that it's always different. It always keeps you on your toes. It's so fast paced. You have no time to overthink anything.
Yep.
You just react and you trust yourself. I think for anybody who's thinking about being a goalie or anybody who is a goalie, like when you really think about what it is that you're doing, you're building up a skill and relying on the way you've taught yourself or been taught to that you're going to stop these pucks, and it just builds up that self-confidence. And I'm not saying goalies are the most confident players on the ice there, but you have to have a lot of confidence to step in front of a puck, especially depending on what level you're playing at, but at any level. And yeah, absolutely love it.
And even if you don't have that confidence for that night, you better have a good poker face, because
Yes.
the confidence you exude is absorbed by your teammates.
Yeah.
You know, if you go out there with a bad attitude, they play different. I think back to my coaching days, depending on who is in net, the team played differently because
Wow.
of the
Yeah.
confidence those goalies exuded. You know, the last beer league championship I won, I was filling in for a summer for a team because it was funny. Their goalie was out of town or something, so I filled in for like 3 weeks, and we went on a roll. And he came back and he's like, "Well, he's hot. Let him keep playing." Well, then we go into the playoffs and we just keep winning. We get all the way to the championship game, and I'm like, "Am I playing?" And the captain's like, our goalie's like, "Just let it roll." And we go into the game and we wound up winning the game. And I was just walked in that day as like confident and like, "Let's win this thing, boys." And we wound up winning the game 2-1. And it was just that confidence rubbed off on them, and it rubbed off on me too, because it's not often I only allow 2 goals or less in a beer league game. And then this is a championship and I only let 1 in. And there was a flurry at the last 2 minutes, empty net at the other end. And they were just peppering me. It's like, whew, eats that one out, and got a t-shirt for the wardrobe and a few beers afterwards.
Yeah, that's, oh my gosh. When you're in the zone, like it's really hard for you to it's hard to explain it to somebody. Like there's many times where I'm on the ice and saves that I'm making, I'm like, how did I do that? Like I even surprised myself. And it's just like, you're right. When you have that confidence, you make things happen. You make the saves, you stop the play, you do whatever you need to do because you're in the zone. But then the moment I've had in games where like one moment you let it slip and that's when they score on you, and you're just like, wow, it's crazy how quickly it can turn if you're not focused. Yeah.
But on the flip side, when you're in a rut in a game and you're like, "No, that's enough," and all of a sudden that switch is flipped the other way.
Yeah, exactly. And then sometimes, and it's going to happen, is like you're trying your hardest to flip that switch and there's nothing you can do to do it. No matter what, your team is just letting them by, letting them shoot, letting 2-on-0s, whatever it is. Like you can only do so much as a goalie. And again, I think that's why I really love the position, is that it truly prepares you for life, because life is always never fair. You always got to be ready for that defenseman to tip the puck over your shoulder, and yeah. But that's the fun part, is like at the end of the day, it's a game, like I did my best. It was fun. Cool.
You talk about sometimes no matter how good you're playing, scoreboard isn't going to reflect it because of your team. Nope. And that's where I've really come to like the Stop It Goaltending Game Day app by Brian DeClore, because you track the game a completely different way. And it tells you how many goals should you have let in based on the way things happen. So, I was looking, I'd been doing that for my games this probably last 8 months or so, since I had Brian on the podcast. And some of these games where I let in 6-7 goals, I go back and look at it. I feel pretty good about the way I play, because it's saying I should have let in about that. And in fact, when I go back and look, I'm within about 1.5 goals of my expected goals against. And it's like my actual goals against average and our win-loss record doesn't show a lot of good play. But when I look at it that way, I feel better about myself, because there's those games where you get shelled, but you still feel like you played well. And it's like, well, did I? Well, this app kind of helps confirm that you did. It takes into effect the team in front of you. It's really cool.
I gotta look into that, because it's funny, when I look back at one of my best games that I've ever played, it was when I was playing against a team just called Brampton. It's one of the cities nearby. And
if you're a hockey fan and don't know of the town of Brampton, you're not
Yes.
a hockey fan.
Yeah, exactly. So you got the battalions and stuff. And so we were playing and I let in 6 goals. Okay. But I'm
Yep.
telling you, I probably got 60 to 75 shots. But I had fun because every new
Yep.
time that they came down on me, I'm like, this team is just so much better than our team that it's allowing me the opportunity to push myself. And I think that's the thing that I love when I play against these higher tier teams. And in general, is just like when you're playing against somebody so much better,
Yep.
it doesn't matter what the score is. You can't look at the score and be like, I'm bad because I let in 6 goals. It's like, but how many shots? Yeah. What's your team in front of you doing? But again, like if you take those opportunities as a challenge, I think people will realize like, oh no, that's actually more fun when I'm getting peppered with shots versus getting 5 shots a period.
It really is. And I say that selfishly because if you've listened to some of my stuff, in fact, I had one of my high school goalie partners on. That was my high school career. We were getting 50, 60 shots a game. So I like the work. I like those busy games because you get into a zone where you don't even have time to think. And it's just like boom, boom, boom. But those are also the games. I don't know if you've encountered it where the scoreboard might say it's like, I don't know, 6-1, and you make a save, and the guy's like, would you just let me have one? And I'm like,
Yeah.
This happened at a game not too long ago where that happened. And the guy's like, just let me have one. And I looked at him, it just kind of went like this and went, you already got 7. How many more do you need? And he just kind of started laughing. He goes, doesn't feel like it, but those are the games where you're playing your butt off. And even though that other team is, beating you guys good, they don't feel like they're beating you. And in the handshake
Exactly.
line, they're like, "Ooh, we got lucky there. We squeaked one out." It's like, no, you really didn't. But those are fun games. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I absolutely that's probably one of my favorite things, and probably why I continue to be a goalie is like when somebody's like, "Yeah, can you just let me score?" It's like I almost have pride in like, nope, I will not let you score unless you try. Actually, there was a game. It was probably the video on my channel with the most views where there was a brawl. There was like the guy who.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, but in between, while they were trying to sort it all out, their team was shooting on me while I was just waiting, and I didn't let them score. And I was like, "Don't ever let them score. Like, it doesn't matter." And like, even literally, the guy went to the right. I just put my paddle up, stopped it, and I'm just like, you don't ever let them score. It doesn't matter. And that's it's so much fun. I don't think anybody who hasn't been a goalie doesn't understand the feeling of stopping somebody, especially when you know 100% that was going in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've gotten pretty good at breakaways because of my flexibility. And so it's really fun to like cheat to force guys to do something and
Yeah.
just know as they're coming in, like, I know it's about to happen and this is going to be fun.
Yeah. 100%. When you know their move, or like, yeah, I'm going to work them. They have no idea what's about to come. Yeah. It's the best.
or when you make those saves, like I love stacking the pads or, some of those. And when you make those saves and the guy shooting just like smiles and like shakes his head as they skate away and they're like, it's like Ron Burgundy. I'm not even mad. I'm kind of impressed.
Yeah, totally. I love that. I love that feeling.
Yeah. So I want to be mindful of time because I know you and I could talk all night.
Yeah.
If you listen to any of the episodes, I finish up with 10 questions. Same questions I've asked every single guest. And I do want to tell people, if you go to the blog, I'll link it in the show notes. Did a write-up with you. So we've skipped over some things like, your background because it's in there. I don't want to rehash it. And I want to drive selfishly, I want to drive people to the blog. But the first question, what is the craziest coaching moment from your playing days where a coach just lost it?
Oh, an angry coach. Oh, that's a good one.
They don't necessarily have to be angry. It can be funny.
Okay. This is a really funny moment that I'll never forget. So I only played AAA for 1 season. And without going into too much detail, it was the last attempt I had of playing AAA, made the team. It was an amazing opportunity. I played a game. I got a shutout. After the game, the coach comes in and he says, "What did you have for dinner tonight?" As in, like, this is what you need to eat every night. And I was like, McDonald's. And he's like biting his tongue because he doesn't want to tell me, well, that's what you have to do before every game. But he kind of said like, oh, okay, well, maybe you need to eat more McDonald's. And it was not a plug for McDonald's, but like, yeah, that was probably one of the craziest things. The fact that the coach admitted, like, okay, maybe this is what you got to do. I didn't follow that advice and I didn't get shutout after shutout, but it was really funny to hear a coach agree to that.
It's funny that reminds me of it was summer league hockey in high school. We were playing at what's now Arctic Ice. It used to be called the Orland Park Ice Arena, and I make this save. I'm on my left side, down in the butterfly, just past the post. Puck goes to a guy in the other circle, wide open, nobody on him, open net. He fires it, and I just dive across, Superman like this, glove open,
Yeah.
hits my glove. I didn't catch it, but I stopped it. Team got the puck and went the other way.
Nice.
We're in the locker room after the game. I'm taking my stuff off, and as my teammates saying, how in God's green earth did you stop that puck? I'm taking my chest protector off, and I'm wearing a Superman t-shirt. It's just the blue shirt with the Superman logo. And I just take it off, and I went like this, and like the whole locker room just lost. It was like perfect timing. Like, how did you do that? And it's just like, yeah, Superman.
Yeah. Okay, so note to self, always wear a Superman shirt in the event that ever happens. I love it.
Well, the rest of the summer, they're like, you need to wear that shirt every game. So like I wound up doing it, but it was just so funny. How did that happen? And there's the Superman shirt. Now I know this answer, but what is your favorite all-time goalie mask?
Oh, well, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious because I own it. But it's the Cujo. It's the Toronto Maple Leaf Cujo. This is my all-time favorite design. It's so cool. And I actually liked it when he went red when he played for Detroit for that, season. But I still to be honest, if this wasn't a safety hazard, I would still be wearing this helmet to the day because I love the paint job that much. So, Cujo.
As a Belfour fan, I appreciated it. I didn't appreciate him when he played, but having read his book, I don't know if you read his book, but I have so much respect for the guy. Just didn't like him when he played. Although I remember watching that game when he was with the Oilers, that playoff game. Everybody knows the Cujo playoff game, and I just remember sitting there like, "What is going on? Like, this is unreal." So the next question: what's your favorite rink that you've played at?
Oh, that's a good question. I have to say my favorite rink is probably Lake Placid. Because that's where, the miracle happened. Everything happened. I got to play there in a tournament. And it was just surreal being in that arena, knowing what happened there many, many years ago. And I'm just it just was a beautiful arena. And then getting to play, I think, by far, that's probably the best arena to date. Yeah.
My son's best friend, his little brother, is a squirt goalie. And he just went out to a goalie camp out there this summer. And I don't know who was more excited, him or his mom who took him out there. But yeah, there's a little bit of goalie envy knowing he got to go out there and play, because that's one of those rinks I want to one day make it to.
Honestly, it's totally worth it. I mean, I had a tournament, but if you could figure out a way to get there, it's worth it.
I would love to play there. So what is your favorite stick that you've used?
That's a great question, because I find I know some goalies are very gearheads. Like everything has to be particular. And you know what? I've been playing with why am I blanking on the name? Not composites, the
foam core.
Foam core, yeah. So my whole life I played with foam core, right? And one day there was a stick that was left outside of an arena. I'm talking weeks. It was just left there weeks and weeks and weeks. I'm like, you know what? It's a composite. I've never tried it. Nobody's clearly claiming it. I'm going to try it. So I tried it and absolutely loved the idea of the composite, but it was a little short for me. It was a CCM Premier or something like that. So now I actually there's a new stick where I forget the name of it right now, but it's all black. It's no name type of thing.
Oh yeah, the all black hockey stick.
That's what it is. Yeah, it's just all black. And I can't tell you how much I love this stick. The fact that it's A, affordable for a beer leaguer, and B, it's just as good as what you would get for a $300 stick. It hasn't broken on me. It has pretty good flex. I feel like I can shoot the puck pretty good on it. I absolutely will not go with these sticks moving forward unless I'm in a pinch, my stick breaks, and I have to go get whatever's at the pro shop. But yeah, the all black, I'm actually really happy with it.
I've heard good things about them. And then I go to the Let's Play Hockey Expo every year with my son. And I've seen the sticks. And when I pick them up and mess around with them at the expo, I like them. Them and the no-name hockey sticks, they seem like good ones. So that's good to know.
I do have to say, once I went from foam core to composite, it's hard to think to go back to foam core though. I liked it, but they're just so much heavier.
Yeah, I see. I know my sticks are heavy, but my first goalie stick was a wooden Titan goalie stick that was a senior that was
Yeah.
way too big for me. So like I'm used to such heavy sticks that even a foam core to me is a light
Yeah.
stick. Where I almost worry when I do finally make the switch to composite if that will be too light. Like,
You
will
know
my
what though?
stick be off the ice because it's too light?
So here's something interesting. I was going to mention that. So working with Nick DeHaan, one of the things that he was teaching me before I stopped, because I had to leave, he was starting to teach me about how to play with your stick off the ice. And in your mind, you're like, that seems ridiculous. But the way that he coaches is like, no, by the time you're in your butterfly, you have the seal. But because you have your stick up off the ice, now you have a more mobility with your blocker to make the save to go into the corner. And then I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. But it feels weird with your stick not covering your five hole, and B, being off the ice. But I mean, once you try it, you might notice now with your new pads, when you go into the 5 hole, it'll actually be where you need it to be.
Well, one thing I did this year is I ordered a Warrior off of Pro Stock Hockey, and it's
Hmm.
Colin Delia return. And I ordered it because I had the trigger grip. I've been wanting to
Okay.
try trigger grip.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. But it's a shorter paddle that I'm used to. I usually go with about a 27 and a half inch paddle. And I
Oh,
think
that's
this one's
yeah.
25. So it's noticeably shorter. And I notice that allows me when I'm down in the butterfly, my arms really don't move as I go down now. And so it's kind
Yeah.
of the same idea, but the stick's on the ice the whole time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was actually on Ingle. They've been talking about, some goalies going with shorter paddles now for that reason. I'm like, well, let's give it a try and see how I like it. I don't hate
Yeah.
it. I'll put it that way. I'm still getting used to it. But I love the trigger grip. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I'm 6'1.5", and I'm like, I was using a 27-inch paddle, and then when finally someone was like, "That's way too long for you. You shouldn't be using that.
Mhm.
You need more of a 25.5, 26." I was like, "There's no way." And when I started using, I think my block stick is either 25 or 26. I think it's a 25, and I love it because nobody's making 5 hole saves standing up anymore. It doesn't happen.
I am.
Fair enough. Yes. Okay. Most people
Yeah,
who yes.
I am. Cooper goalie is. I think Bonesy is when he's got his old school pads on.
Yes, if you're gonna play the old school style, I should rephrase that. If you're playing new school, then for sure you don't need a bigger stick. But yeah, old school, you
Yeah,
definitely need the longer
yeah,
stick.
but it's like I mentioned that first Titan stick I had that was a senior, and I was a squirt using it. But I think back to my childhood favorite goalie of Eddie Belfort. And, he had that arm up like this, so
Yeah,
that's how I played most of my life, where I had the big paddle and just got so used to the arm up like this that when I
yeah,
bring that arm down to be more of that Quebec butterfly style of, hands in close, it feels weird. And I notice more pucks going that way. So I almost feel like I need that taller paddle to help with
yeah,
that. Um,
totally.
so the next question is, what's your favorite youth hockey memory?
My favorite youth hockey memory. You know what? Going back to again, a lot of my memories. Okay, I got two. One is back in the day, Tim Hortons used to have these. When you bought chocolate milk, it wasn't in like a little carton. It used to be an
Yeah.
actual like glass, like a paper cup. And I
Mhm.
remember one of my childhood memories was every time I'd have a game, I'd get the largest cup of chocolate milk, and I absolutely loved it. So that was just a fond memory related to going to the rink. But going back to when I made the AAA team, and I might have talked about this in a video one time, but if not, when I finally tried out, the coach on the team, it was the last tryout, and every player gets to go into the room to have a one-on-one with the coach, and that's where he tells you whether or not you made the team.
Mhm.
And I went into the whole thing, and I don't recommend this to anybody, especially if you're young and you're trying out for big teams. Don't ever go in with the mindset you're not going to make it. No, like whatever you do, don't do it. Because I mean, on one end, it made me feel not pressured. Like it was just, I'm going to have fun. It's the last time I have the opportunity. But at the same time, like you do want to be a little bit more focused. But we went into the room, it was my mom and I, and he looks at me and he's like, "So why haven't you ever played AAA before?" And I'm like, "Well, I never thought I was good enough, so I just never tried out." He's like, "You should have been here 6 years ago." And so the reason why it's a fond memory, it's because it made me believe in myself. Like it gave me this utmost confidence of like, you should always believe in yourself and you should never discount your ability to try something that you've never tried before. And so like that really has stuck with me my whole life. And then more importantly, I was kind of a little upset with myself because I was like, well, shoot, if I was here 6 years ago, where would I be today? So it's a really interesting, it's a fond moment, but it's also one of those moments of like, okay, moving forward, don't ever not do something because you don't think you're good enough, because you don't know until you try. So I cherish that moment a lot.
Yeah. And I like that advice of, going to those meetings with confidence, going to those meetings knowing you belong there. Cause I was going in my senior year. I tried out for a junior team for a league that didn't make it past its first year. In fact, the team folded halfway through. And we were the only team north of the Mason-Dixon line. Every other team was down in Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, like all through there. And then whenever we would have to travel, we'd have to travel for a while. So instead of 3 goalies, the team was allowed to keep 4. There were 4 goalies at practice, and we were getting ready for the first road trip. So the coach was meeting with each goalie, and my high school season hadn't started yet. And so I was like, I need to make a decision here. Am I going to play juniors this year? And I had it worked out with my school because practices were at 6 a.m. at this rink, about an hour away from the house. So I was going to do that. And then I would just have study hall first period. School was going to be great. And so the coach, calls me in to talk to him. And he goes, do you have anything to say? I said, yeah. So what's the plan with me? Am I going to be getting playing time because I believe I should have it? Or should I go back to my high school team and, get the varsity ice time there? And the coach was just like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, this is a heck of a commitment. I'm ready to make it, but I want to make sure you're committed to me the way I am to this team. And he was just kind of taken aback. And he's like, well, we've got 4 of you and we plan on using all 4 of you. If you really want, more ice time, I would recommend going back to your high school team. And I went, okay. I was like, all right. I won't be here for practice tomorrow. And he was just like, wait a minute, what? I was like, yeah, I'm going to go back to my high school team. And then, tryouts began. And my coach, he was in his first year, I step on the ice for tryouts. And he kind of called me out in the, stretching. He's like, I didn't think you were going to be here. I thought you were playing juniors this year. I said, yeah, I wanted to play. So, and I'm glad I made that decision because, playing 4 years with your high school buddies is so much fun. And even that senior year, there were some great memories, but I went in there with confidence and I wasn't worried about either decision I made. I was comfortable with both ones, but it was just kind of funny that a lot of coaches aren't expecting you to come in with that confidence. They think they have that, I don't want to say power over you, but they think they're the ones that have just the power. And it's like, you control a lot of that yourself as a player, no matter how old you are.
Yeah. And I think you made something really like something just stood out is like the reason why I think I'm still able to succeed is maybe not that I went in with this confidence, but you mentioned like you don't carry either way in terms of like, okay, I have my options. I'm confident in the options that I have. So for me, I was just like, well, if I don't make AAA, I'll just go back to AA. So that is, I think, the key is just making sure you know what the options are and being okay with either. Like I didn't put everything into one basket saying I have to make this AAA team. And I didn't think I was. So yeah, that totally makes sense. And that's probably the advice to take from that is just be okay with either outcome. Don't put so much pressure on yourself for one or the other.
Yeah, it's kind of like, in my professional career now, where it's like if I go into a meeting with my boss and a review and I think I deserve a raise, I'm going to state my case. But if I don't get it, I'm not going to be upset either. Or if I go in saying, I got this job offer, I want to stay here. What can you do?
Yeah.
Be ready for them to say, we can't do anything. And be okay going to the other company.
Exactly.
So the next question, what's the best chirp you've heard on the ice, off the ice, directed at you, not directed at you?
Ooh, the best chirp. Oh, that's a good one. This isn't a chirp, but one of the funniest things on ice that I heard was a ref asked me if I wanted a piece of gum, which is so bizarre. Chirp. Oh, that's a tough one. You know what's funny? I don't think I really have gotten. I mean, once I started putting the GoPros up, I definitely get a lot of those. Oh, put that on Sports Center. I'll see that
Yeah.
on ESPN tonight or stuff like that. But yeah, I don't. I'm trying to think back to my earlier times, and I don't think I got too much chirps. But definitely now with the cameras, I think that's the number one thing. It's not my play.
Yeah.
I think I'm fortunate enough that I'm playing at a level where I'm able to stop most of the pucks that come my way. So most of the chirps are just like when they finally score. Oh, that's going to go on a highlight. And they will go up on my own.
Well, I like when we make the ridiculous save and the guy that shoots, he's like, that one's going to make the highlights, and
Yeah,
they point to the camera. But
I love it.
you talk about the ref offering you gum. There was these brothers that would work our goalie camp in the summer, but they were refs, the Schmuck brothers. We always call them the Schmucks. And if I wasn't playing a game, they always had Jolly Ranchers in their pockets. And in
Okay.
high school, they'd be skating by throwing Jolly Ranchers at me. So I had candy on the bench. And the one day, my one coach, he's looking over, he goes, did the ref just throw something at you? It's like, yeah, he threw me an apple Jolly Rancher. He's like,
Yeah.
what is going on here? It's like, I know these guys. Don't worry.
Yeah. Oh man.
But yeah.
Yeah. That's
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. So the next question, what is the worst post-game beer?
So I actually have to admit I do not drink. So I would say, in my opinion, every beer is the worst beer. Like it's just something I didn't ever acquired when I was younger. I know a lot of
Yeah.
people in their teenage years they trial and error, but for me, I was just like, I'm gonna stay away from alcohol. It wasn't something that I was interested in, and to this day, I think because I didn't develop the palate, I just now
Yeah.
everything I've ever sipped just tastes horrible to me.
And good for you. And it's interesting because I'm wondering if I need to actually change this question. I've been thinking about it for a couple weeks. There's more and more goalies I talk to, have either sobered up or don't drink. And I've actually talking to non-goalies too, just people since
Yeah,
COVID. I think some people they maybe drank a little bit more because they were home and everything else, but
yeah,
more than most, I would say more people are like, I'm not drinking much anymore.
yeah.
In fact, myself, I used to brew beer. I like it,
Oh no
but
way.
it's like I'm not going to brew, and get 2 cases of beer when it took me probably 3 months to go through a 4-pack at home. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily need 2 cases. Um, yeah. So I will change that question to say, what's the worst post game beverage then?
The worst post game beverage. I think one time I made a protein shake, but then I left it in the fridge, and then when I got home, I drank it, but it, like somehow solidified a little bit. I don't know why, because I guess whatever was in it, it got a little bit like thick, and it did. Yeah, it did not taste good. So if you make a protein shake, drink it
Yeah.
right away after you drink it.
Yeah. Well, it's you see a lot of these social media influencers pushing athletic greens, and
Yeah,
my wife got them for a while, and she tried getting me to drink them, and I was like, this stuff tastes like dirt with a
yeah,
hint of grass. Like,
nope.
and I've seen people like bring that to the rink as I'm like, what is wrong with you? Do you want to poop your pants on the ice doing that or what?
Yeah. Oh,
um,
thank you.
yeah, some of those shakes and supplements, like they are not drinking them because they taste good.
No, no. I actually came across one. One of the guys that was one of our clients, he actually acquired a company, and this isn't to promote his company, but it actually
Yeah.
tastes good. It's called Zuma Juice, and what it is basically all the greens that you need in a day in a little packet that you just put in water. And
Oh, cool.
honestly, it tastes like candy. Like one of the flavors is like peach ring candy, and I'm not lying. It actually tastes like you're drinking peach rings. Now, I'm going to pre-frame with if you don't like sugary drinks, like if you don't like the idea of tasting sweet, then you won't like it. But there's not a lot of sugar in it. It just is
Yeah.
very sweet, but I have a sweet tooth. So I'm like
So do
pounding
I.
these things back. I love them. So,
When
but
I was
yeah.
coaching, our parkas had these little pockets right here, and I would start every game with a big bag of Sour Patch Kids.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah,
Okay.
I've got a sweet tooth, and it was funny because you could tell how good the game was going by how many Sour Patch Kids I had at the end of a period or at the end of. If I had any left after a game, that meant the game was real good. And then if I was sharing them with the backup goalie, things were going great.
That's
Um,
awesome. That's
yeah.
a really funny indication.
So when you tape your stick, do you go heel to toe or toe to heel?
Heel to toe, 100%
Okay.
because I'm one of the guys that tape from like the top part and then go down and around the blade.
Same.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, and you're in the majority, and I think we did that as kids growing up because of those old wood sticks. You had to do that to
Exactly.
protect the heel. Um,
They
these
would
young
always
kids
fall
today,
apart.
yeah, these young kids today just don't understand because it's
They
not,
have no
you know,
clue.
back then you could throw some wood glue in there and add some more weight to your stick and stick it in the clamp overnight, and you save your stick, get some more life out of it. You
Yeah,
can't really do that with the composite sticks. It's if the heel's
because they like
shot, the heel's
shatter.
shot. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You
Um,
can't save it.
so, what is your favorite number to wear and why?
Yeah, so all my life I grew up wearing 30 because there was only 1 or 30, and 30 was the closest to Curtis Joseph's 31. So I grew up just wearing 31, or sorry, 30. And
Or-
that even is on the back of my hoodie, if you can see it. It's literally just 30 is my number, and that's just what I wear. And yeah, I think it's just unfortunately I didn't get to really choose. But I have to admit, I did for one season wear the number 69 because if you watch Goon, that nut when he says get 69 from the crowd, I'm like, that's so funny that I just need to do that to live that once. And that was the funniest number, but I definitely just enjoy 30.
It's always cringe when you see the beer league team come out and there's that one guy wearing 69. He's usually probably 350 pounds to begin
Yep.
with,
Yep.
it's, I don't want to say he's got the tinted visor, but the odds are good that he does.
Yep.
And it's even worse when he's wearing the roller hockey pants.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. It was not one of my highlight number choices, but and it's funny because like you would think if I had now men's league, I have the choice to pick my number and I still pick 30, even though I could pick 31, but I think it's just now that's my number. So I just
Right.
wouldn't
Yeah.
change it. Yeah.
No, I totally get it. So the last question, what advice do you have for young goalies?
Yeah. I have a lot of advice, but I think my number one advice is kind of what we talked about a little bit earlier is like if you are playing, especially goaltending, do it because you love it, because it's fun, because you see the passion and the opportunity you have to develop yourself as an individual. But more importantly, like just remember it's a game. Like I think
Yep.
a lot of people put too much pressure on themselves, like we talked about. And I think at the end of the day, I think KVG has the best. I wish I came up with it, but like all roads lead to beer league. And it's
Y-
true. Like if
Yeah.
you're 7, you're 8, you're 15, like no matter what, you are going to end up in beer league unless you absolutely don't want to play hockey anymore, even if you make it to the NHL.
Yep.
So it's just a game. Have fun, do the best you can, and if you're similar to us and you want to keep getting better, just keep focusing on what you need to do to improve. And the number one actionable tip: film yourself. No matter what, even if you're not making a YouTube channel, you won't. I can't express how much my game improved the moment I started reviewing my own game
Same.
because I saw that my hand was out here instead of being here or my block or whatever. Like you don't actually see what you're doing wrong until you physically see it.
No,
So
that's great advice because my son, being a baseball player, I've taken video of him, in his swing. When he was pitching, I was taking pic because he was coming kind of sidearmed, and I was like, "You got
yeah,
to come over." And once he saw it, and he could make that connection, and the
yeah,
video, I every goalie school now they have the iPads out there doing video
yeah,
to show these kids so they can see it real time. And that is great advice.
yeah,
Don't think kids are don't get that feeling of, oh, I can't video. People are going to think I'm Hollywood or something. It's like, no,
yeah,
you're trying to be better for your teammates. And if they don't understand that, oh, well, you're still,
exactly.
you're there for yourself anyway.
Yeah. So that's my biggest advice because that's what's helped me the most. And
Yeah.
yeah, even if like here's the thing too, like people are like, oh, do I need a good camera? No. Like I still shoot on the GoPro Hero 4. They
Yep.
have the Hero 10 or 11 out now, but like you don't need the best of the best. You just need something that works. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's I think the best advice.
I was using the first generation GoPro until last year when for Christmas my kids got me the Hero
Nice.
9 for Christmas
Yeah.
because they're like, Dad, that Hero 1, like it's got a scratch on the screen and everything. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay. So they got me the upgrade. And I think part of it
Nice.
was selfishly so I could, use that cabin and, you know, in the lake and stuff. But it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't matter how good the camera is, just set it up, yeah,
Exactly.
and learn from it. Well,
Exactly.
Sam, it's been great talking to you. I'm excited that we're going to start seeing more of your content again because I always look forward to it. The rotating puck stops here logo.
Yep.
I love it. So
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great. And I'm I'm excited. Like, this is a great, like, when you at first asked me to come on the podcast, I'm like, I want to time it so when I'm about to post, like, it's now I'm finally getting back into it. And like, so now I got to do this. Now I'm going to be posting, hopefully, fingers crossed, this Sunday will be my first video back. And then it'll just be
Pressure's
ongoing from
on.
there. Pressure's on. Yeah. I got some time. I'm almost done. So that's the key, is almost being done. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome. So,
Yeah.
well, we'll keep in touch, and if you're ever in the Twin Cities, we'll have to get together and grab some pops.
For sure. Yes. Well, thank you.